Are people who visit cemeteries a bit odd? Do they live in the past or somehow enjoy being surrounded by death and sadness? For some people, cemeteries aren't simply rows of tombstones with names and years on them. It's not even the messages, some of which are mournful, others inspiring. It's the story that each of them has to tell. War cemeteries especially are a testament to bravery and sacrifice. Going beyond the limited information on the gravestone and uncovering the real story is both a fascinating and rewarding process. It allows us not just to know who is buried there, but why. Where did these people come from? What were the circumstances that brought them to this place? To illustrate my point, I will talk about a random visit to a Commonwealth war cemetery. Not one of those that I usually visit scattered across Europe, but in the town of Harrogate in the north of England. And, unlike many of the European ones, the almost 1,000 graves are not the result of a single battle or engagement, but of lives lost for many diverse reasons. 660 of the memorials are of Canadians serving with the RAF at the many bomber stations in Yorkshire. The Stonefall Commonwealth War Cemetery in Harrogate is more than just a memorial. It's a library of stories. Take this gravestone, for example. Warrant Officer James William Beale of the RAF. James was 31 years old and on the 2nd of June 1943 was awarded an MBE, a Member of the Order of the British Empire. He saw service in North Africa, which was apparently very traumatic. On his return to the UK, he suffered from ill health and on the 18th of December 1943 was found hanging from a beam in his quarters at RAF Croft, where he was stationed. Let's also take a look at leading aircraftman Isaac Roland Bryan. Along with many other RAF volunteers, Isaac came from Jamaica. 2 years after the war ended, on the 7th of May 1947, he died of pulmonary tuberculosis. Several others of his compatriots suffered similar afflictions, which were believed to have been brought on by the damp and cold conditions in the camps in the north of England. Isaac was 21. Aircraftman second class Ivan Copeland Ashman, also from Jamaica, succumbed to a similar disease on the 28th of April 1945, aged 19. Not all casualties are from the Second World War. Private Joseph Shackleton from the Army Service Corps died from an illness on the 17th of April 1917 at St. Luke's War Hospital in Halifax. He was 48 years old. Others who died of illnesses included Captain Reginald Sidney Bartram. He was born in 1885 and died in 1943, so he would have been 58. Born in Tunbridge, Kent, he was a map expert and likely served in one of the administrative facilities in Harrogate. Interestingly, he is commemorated on a wall memorial. This suggests that he was cremated rather than buried, possibly following his death from an infectious disease, maybe lung-related. Similarly, ACW2 Esme Joan Healy, serving with the Women's Auxiliary Air Force at Dishforth, died of a lung abscess and septicemia tonsillitis on the 30th of December 1941 in the military wing of Harrogate Hospital. She was aged 20 and is similarly commemorated. During World War II, Harrogate was surrounded by RAF bases. We therefore have fatalities amongst airmen returning from missions, such as Warrant Officer Lawrence Theodore Chevrier. He was the wireless operator in a bomber crew engaged on a 95 aircraft diversionary mission and was shot down at 01:44 hours at Brafferton near to Thirsk on the night of the 3rd and 4th of March 1945 by what was described as an intruder. The attacker was most likely a Ju-88 night fighter flown by Lieutenant Arnold Doering. He was part of Operation Gizella, where the fighters would follow the RAF bombers back to their bases and attack them when the landing lights came on. He claimed several other kills that night, shot up an RAF station at Topcliffe, killing one of the WAFs, LACW Francis Clinker, aged 22. At the time, it was rumoured that the door to her hut was partially open and emitted a chink of light. Doering also attacked a train, killing the guard. He expended the rest of his ammunition on the streets of Scarborough on the Yorkshire coast before setting off for Denmark. He died on the 10th of April 2001. Lawrence Chevrier was one of the many Canadians buried at Stonefall and was aged 23. He died alongside 6 other crew members, 5 of whom were Canadians. On the 17th of February 1945, Flying Officer Bernard Morley Stock of the Royal Canadian Air Force, flying with an all-Canadian crew, was returning from a 110 aircraft mission to bomb targets in Wesel, Germany. Due to cloud over the target, however, few were able to release their bombs. Bernard was aged 21 and this was his 23rd operation flying in a Halifax. The aircraft, with its full bomb load, crashed at Weathercairn in the Cheviot Hills. The large crater created during the controlled detonation of the bombs was used to bury the remains of the aircraft. Other fatalities were the result of collisions or errors on training flights. Sergeant Donald Charles Ravine was the second pilot of Halifax DG-420, which crashed near to Tadcaster. Flying directly into the sun, it crashed head-on into another Halifax, also on a training flight. Altogether, 14 airmen died in this accident, with 4 buried at Stonewall. 2 civilians on the ground suffered severe burns from fuel leakage and spent months in hospital. The pilot, Murray Bonner, had only clocked 1 hour's flying time on the Halifax, although the pilot of the other bomber, Sergeant Terence Ashley, aged 20, was blamed for the accident. Flying Officer John William Percival, a 30-year-old New Zealander and holder of the DFC, the Distinguished Flying Cross, was taking off on a training flight when he decided to demonstrate the effects of a rudder stall, since this had been a problem with some variants of the aircraft. The Halifax managed to spin from a considerable height and crashed and burst into flames at 0:10-12 hours on the 22nd of September 1942. The trainee pilot, the flight engineer and the air gunner also died. Here we find a Czech national, Sergeant Jerzy Erwin Blyer, aged 28. He was a trainee navigator who died on the 17th of May 1943 near to Tadcaster. The aircraft, an Avro Anson, was on a daytime low-level navigation training. At around 11:25 hours, it was flying so low that it hit a telegraph pole and crashed with the loss of all 5 crew. That same day, another Anson from the same training unit clipped a wingtip whilst flying low, but the pilot was able to land at nearby Skipton. The rest of Sergeant Blair's family perished in the Holocaust. Amongst other foreign nationals buried at Stonefall, we have a German and 3 Russians. Corporal Johann Schürler, aged 38, was a prisoner at POW Camp Streven, near Knaresborough. This was a very low security camp and the inmates would come and go into the town and the surrounding countryside. On the 19th of November 1946, Johann was riding a bicycle at the top of Greengate Lane when he was involved in a collision with a lorry driven by another POW, Johannes Kirsten. He was taken to Harrogate Hospital where he died of his injuries later the same day. The Russians were refugees from German POW camps in France. They were sick and severely malnourished and were sent to Yorkshire to recover. In spite of the care they received, these 3, Kolishev, Ivan Ustinov and Petr Kapalil, did not survive. There is one non-military burial. You can tell by the shape of the tombstone with its cut corners. Edward Patrick Kerstin did actually serve in the Royal Artillery during World War II. He was responsible for burying and even reburying fallen comrades. At the end of the war, he transferred to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission and stayed in France to take care of war cemeteries around the Somme and Vimy Ridge. Known as Paddy, he dedicated his life to taking care of memorials to his fallen comrades from both world wars. Eventually, he became responsible for North Africa and was posted to Tunisia. Sadly, on the 16th of November 1981, he was murdered by a local employee. The CWGC graciously allowed him to be buried alongside his comrades. And to close, here we find a member of the Home Guard, an organisation immortalised in the TV series Dad's Army. Living in Harrogate and married to Maud, Sergeant William Frederick Springett died on the 6th of November 1942, aged 44. The circumstances of his death are not given, but Harrogate functioned as a major administrative and training hub, with many of the major hotels taken over for this purpose. There were, however, no major Luftwaffe attacks in Yorkshire at this time. There are also no local newspaper reports related to Home Guard deaths, although they were usually covered. The assumption, therefore, is that William's death was illness-related. Just a random few of the hundreds of stories in Stonefall War Cemetery alone. We honour them all.